This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. My name is Vicky Quinn Fraser and this is my husband, Joe.
Hello.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Because that was a very subtle difference from your normal introduction.
Was it?
Yeah. You were a bit kind of softer and smoother, and you threw some extra words in there.
Sorry.
Unusual.
I'm very sorry. It's a while since we've made a podcast. We missed out last week.
Yeah.
Because
just
shit's going on.
Scheduling failures.
Yes, the cats are going to be a part of this week's podcast. They are milling around looking for a fight with each other, not with us.
It's raining outside.
It's raining outside, so they're fed up. And they're blaming us for the rain and Whiskey.
Please don't chew up the rug.
Whiskey is currently deliberately provoking us because she is ripping up my rug whilst giving us half an eyeball. So yes, anyway. Welcome. I might start introducing this as Welcome to the Notes in the Margin podcast, because I'm going to change the name to it at some point.
You're going to change the name of the podcast?
Again. To Notes in the Margin, because that is my newsletter.
Good Lord.
I know. I'm a nightmare.
Is it still the same podcast, or is it a different podcast?
It's the same podcast.
Okay.
Different name and branding, because...
Do all the people who've subscribed to it fall off the list and have to start again or something?
No. They'll stay subscribed because the podcast stays the same. So this is still the Business for Superheroes podcast, but it just got renamed. I know.
Yeah.
I know, I'm a nightmare.
Yeah, nightmare.
But, you know, Podfly are going to be listening to this and go, no, fuck no, just stop. Hi, Podfly.
Hi, Podfly, guys.
Thanks so much for always being lovely. Okay, so yeah, what's happened since the last podcast? Many things. I did another write night, which was fabulous.
Went well.
Did go well. Really enjoyed it, and
Lovely.
I think everybody who came along really enjoyed it as well. I'm just sending out little thank yous to everybody at the moment. And so, what are you reading, Joe, at the moment?
I'm reading How to Travel with a Salmon and Other Essays by Umberto Eco.
Cool.
And I'm not sure I'm clever enough to read Umberto Eco.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Because everybody says he's a really good writer and he's brilliant and he's famous and all that kind of stuff. And I have in the past read a couple of his books. I've read Foucault's Pendulum and I've read the other big one, The Name of the Rose. And, you know, they're good books. His essays, I'm not sure I'm getting much out of them.
Okay. But
that could be because I'm usually reading my recreational books at the point where I'm falling asleep. So, you know, maybe it's me.
Well, I'm going to read them as well, and I will let you know what I think.
Yeah.
And then we can have a chat about them.
Okay.
Because I've actually read very little Umberto Eco. The thing that made me buy this book is one of his essays that I wrote about coffee pots, and it just was really funny. Like coffee pots around the world and the various badnesses and goodnesses of them. And it was just very funny, very well written. It inspired me to write an essay about socks, which people said was very good. And said they reminded them of Umberto Eco, and I was like, ah.
Did you copy his essay but just change the word coffee pots for socks?
I did not do that. How dare you? Umberto Eco, if you're listening, please don't set your lawyers on me. That is 100% not what happened. You're paying my legal fees.
So you read one of his essays, thought that was good, and then you copied it but made it about socks.
No.
And everybody thought it was, my goodness, this is like one of Umberto Eco's stories.
They said it reminded me of Umberto Eco, which was a massive compliment. And now we're going to launch into an explanation of the difference between inspiration and plagiarism.
What you've got to do is change enough words so that it doesn't look like the same thing.
You're being a dick.
Sorry, what are you reading?
I am reading The Wheel of Time Book 2 by Robert Jordan.
You are in so much trouble.
Well, The Wheel of Time Book 1 was okay, but, you know, it's a good story. I'm going to have a go at Book 2 and see, because I don't really know what's going on. It's like, do you know what? The end of The Wheel of Time Book 1, I thought was all a dream sequence in Rand's head, and I was like, oh, this doesn't sound right at all. And the way it was written, it was like, oh, I've reached the end of the book and I can't really be asked now, which is either that or it's a dream sequence. I don't know. So I was like, I'm going to have to read
What
Book
happens
2.
at the end of book 1?
I can't say that because spoilers. Okay,
right.
spoiler alert, everybody.
It's been out
Stop
for
listening.
30 years.
Well, stop listening for the next minute if you don't want a spoiler. He killed the Dark One with the source, with the one true source.
Oh, right.
And then the Green Man died, which was terrible.
Yeah.
But Nynaeve and Lan were nearly killed, but when he came back, everyone was fine.
Yeah.
And that's what made me think that it was just a dream sequence and that what he thought happened hadn't really happened.
Okay, cool.
So I'm having to read book 2 to find out if that's the case now. But,
yeah, see how that works.
Yeah. Well, so now I think it was a dream sequence because of your reaction. So I don't know.
I'm saying nothing. It's not a dream sequence.
So my non-fiction book, I finally finished reading Through the Language Glass. Okay. Which is really good. It just took me ages because I was really struggling. I've been struggling to concentrate on anything for the last couple of weeks. And it's just taken me... I've been reading that since Christmas. So it's actually a really good book. But my new non-fiction book, which I'm about to start, is called My Mess is a Bit of a Life by Georgia Pritchett. And it's like a little memoir of someone who lives with anxiety. And I was like, oh, that sounds like my kind of book. Because my anxiety is like its own entity.
Nice.
So, and also my master's degree tutor recommended that I read it because my end of module assignment, I was wanting to write about neurodiversity and stuff as kind of like a memoir-y personal essay thing. And she was like, go read this and this and this. And that was one of the books that she recommended. So I'm reading it.
Cool.
Yeah. What's going on at the Dingle this week? We're very just wet everywhere.
Yeah, we're just kind of hunkered down amidst the squelching.
A lot of squelching. The tiny sheeps have gone up to their top field where it's a bit less squelchy for them.
A bit less squelchy, a bit steeper, a bit less squelchy.
Went to see them this morning and they shouted at me.
Oh, good lads.
Yeah, good lads. And we're going to be doing this weekend, we're going to be digging out the compost heap and raking out the raised beds and clearing out the greenhouse ready to plant some stuff.
I mean, that sounds amazing. Can I just...
If it's raining like this, we're not going to do those things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If it is raining like this, we're going to sit by the fire.
No, we're going to build stud walls in the bathroom. We were supposed to have had a quote about the poo. Okay, so that's something that's happened. The poo pit.
Poopocalypse.
The poopocalypse, yeah. So the saga of the septic tank continues. That's literal bullshit. People shit. So yes, we are putting in a new sewage treatment plant because we live off grid. The joys of living off grid, people, things you never thought you'd have to deal with, your own poo. So yeah, next time you're complaining about like infrastructure and stuff, remember that you don't know the half of it. It just is dealt with like magic for you lot, but not for us. So we had someone come around and they were like, oh, your site's a bit awkward, isn't it? And we're like, yes, we know. What can we do? And they were like, well, it's probably going to cost about 15 grand. And we were like, awesome, great, fantastic.
Let's do that.
Let's do that. So yeah, it's like, how do we get the poo from down where our house is to up the hill? Because this is our problem. Gravity does not work in our favour where we are because our house is dug out of a bit of hill. And the building regs are you have to be 7 meters from the house and any boundaries. And we're like, well, that's not possible.
There is nowhere downhill that satisfies any of those. And
in fact, most of the houses in our village couldn't do that.
No.
So building regs are a crock of shit. Hi, you can quote me on that. But honestly, building regs are not very realistic. Although to be fair, the building regs people... They are reasonable. It's like if you physically can't comply with them, then it's like do your best. So we've had a really great guy and a really great woman consultant from the company that we're talking with, and they brought a builder and...
There is a plan, but we have not seen the price yet.
No, which worries me a little bit.
Yes.
Because she was like, oh, it's from ballpark, probably about 15 grand. And I'm like, if it comes in 30 grand, I can fuck off. Just not doing it. So we're a little bit worried about that. Mm-hmm. But on the upside, we will have working sewage when it's finished. So
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, yay. And yeah, so this week we're talking about maybe your imposter syndrome is right. And that's a question that I'm going to get you to consider, dear listener, if your imposter syndrome, I don't know, I just made a whole word up. Your imposter syndrome rears its ugly head. Something to consider, maybe it's right. Maybe you actually don't know enough to do the thing that you want to do. Maybe you do need a little bit more knowledge or skills or, whatever.
Right.
And so, just a question to think about. I'm not saying I'm absolutely not saying let your imposter syndrome stop you from doing things. The exact opposite, in fact, because I think that you've got two choices when faced with imposter syndrome. You can either let it stop you from doing anything, or you can look it squarely in the face and say, do I need to learn more? And then go off and learn the things you need to learn and skill yourself to do the things that you need to do. Or you can examine it and go, actually, no, it's just my brain being a dickhead. I can move forward and do the thing that I want to do. So,
okay, let's talk about what's imposter syndrome then.
Yeah, okay.
It's a bit of an alien concept to me.
Well, you're an alien. We've already established the other day that you're a robot, so synthetic. So yeah, imposter syndrome is. Hang on, I've got an article here that I wrote. I wrote this article. So just hang on, bear with me.
Preparation is everything.
Okay, so according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary and also clinical psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes, imposter syndrome is commonly understood as a false and sometimes crippling belief that one's successes are the product of luck or fraud rather than skill.
Luck or fraud?
Luck or fraud.
Luck or fraud.
Luck or fraud. And I have had my butt kicked by imposter syndrome myself in the last 24 hours because something really cool happened on Instagram. And somebody shared a bunch of books written by women in kind of aid of International Women's Day, people who are breaking the bias and speaking up and changing the way things are. And my audio book, That's What She Said, was included. And I was just like, oh my God, that's really nice.
That's a nice list.
Yeah. And then I had a look at the other books that were on the list and I was like, fuck. And if I say one of them was Michelle Obama's book Becoming, then you'll see why that is. Because I really genuinely, I don't do hero worship, but my book does not belong in the same category as a book by Michelle Obama.
I'd like to just point out that your book was actually higher up the list than Michelle Obama's.
It wasn't. It was just first in the row. Anyway, but I was really delighted by this. But then, of course, obviously, the first thing that my brain does is like, well, you don't belong in that list. And I still contend that I don't belong on a list with Michelle Obama because she was the first lady and is amazing. And I was not the first lady, but I am amazing. So in a different way. But yes, and so it's that kind of feeling of luck or fraud. Anyway, this nice thing happened to me, and immediately my brain goes to, well, people are going to find out that actually I'm a crock of shit. And that is what imposter syndrome is. But like everything, and especially there's a lot of hot buzzwords around at the moment, overused words that have weakened the real meaning, like trauma is thrown around a lot at the moment. People describe things as being traumatic that are actually just everyday life, and real trauma is a separate clinical thing. And so again, it's like I think a lot of people describe just brain bullshit as imposter syndrome when actually it's just your brain questioning stuff. And it's not, imposter syndrome is a false and sometimes crippling belief that one's successes are the product of luck or fraud. People often use it to describe my imposter syndrome is getting in the way of me doing this, that, and the other. And actually that's self-doubt. So it's we're not talking about the same thing here. So no, I do sometimes use the word imposter syndrome when self-doubt would be much better, because it's become a buzzword, and that's what we do, we adopt things. But anyway, so all of that said, the term was first coined in the 1970s by aforementioned clinical psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes, and it has been used and thrown around and misused and has come to mean something slightly different now, I think. But according to research published in the International Journal of Behavioral Science, 70% of the population feels like a fraud. It affects all genders, all occupations, and it doesn't seem to go away no matter how many qualifications you get and how much evidence to the contrary you find. So that's fun. I think it's actually more than 70%, but Joe's obviously in one of the 20% or so that it doesn't affect. Do you never ever feel like you don't belong somewhere? Or that, like not in a social setting, but like a fraud, or you don't deserve your success?
Well, if I had some success to deserve...
You do have success. You've got a really good job in a really good company and you're really good at what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, no, don't lie just to fit in.
I guess there have been a couple of occasions where I've been sat in a meeting with some people who do things like run Unilever or something, and they're listening to what I'm telling them and saying, okay, well, let's do that then. And you think, really? So I guess that's a little bit of self-doubty kind of things.
Yeah, a little bit of, yeah. Like being surprised that somebody would think that you're an expert at what you do, which you are. You're very knowledgeable about what you do. Okay, cool. But let's have a look at this stat for a minute, shall we? Because we're like 70 to 80% of the population feels like a fraud a lot of the time. And that got me thinking, that's not a bug, that's a feature.
Yes.
Because
It's far too common.
Yeah. And so maybe it isn't a syndrome at all. And we kind of slapped the word syndrome on this thing that's actually just a feature of being a human, like having brown eyes or an aversion to eating things that taste awful. Right? It's just a thing. And there are always going to be a small proportion of people who, like, there is, I think, isn't that famous climber? He's got a piece of his brain missing that says danger, danger, don't do this. But there are people like that, aren't there, that just don't have that danger switch. And I wonder if they suffer from imposter syndrome. I would bet everything in my pockets, which is nothing at the moment, that they don't. Because I wonder if all of this is tied into the same aversion to dying that is built into us.
Maybe.
Because in like all of the millennia of human evolution, all of the millions of years, you would think that if it didn't perform some kind of a useful function, or at least didn't harm us, then, or if it harmed us, it would have gone.
It would have gone. It would have been bred out.
Yeah, and so this is why we mostly haven't got an appendix anymore, because it was useless. But things that are harmful to us, like I can't think of anything now. Can you think of anything?
Things that wasted energy or were no good to us. Like once we started walking around, tails became kind of useless.
Yeah, although no, you know what? No, I would love a tail. A tail like a monkey tail, a prehensile tail. How useful would that be?
Not as useful as the energy required to maintain such tail, evidently. Otherwise, you would still have a tail.
Yes, but now, because I'm like a trapeze person, that would be super useful to me, and it would save energy.
Well, it's too late for that. It's several million years too late for that.
Well, I want my tail back.
Too late.
Do you think one day we'll be able to have a tail grafted onto us? I
don't think they'll graft it onto you. I think they'll just turn on a few genes and you'll get your tail back.
That would be cool. But do you think you could do that as an adult? Because I think turning on a gene and having a child born with a tail with no say in it is a bit iffy. But if they turned on a gene as an adult, would you just grow a tail?
I mean, it might take a while.
I'm just thinking about future body modification and stuff, because we do tattoos and piercings and stuff now, and people have implants and all sorts of weird stuff.
What kind of tail would you go for?
Well, I've just said it. Although, you know what?
Yeah, you'd have a hairy tail.
No, I didn't say hairy, like a rat tail.
You said like a monkey tail.
But without hair.
Like
a rat tail.
Like a bald rat tail.
Yeah. To wrap around things like your hands. But I think it would be really fun to have a T-Rex tail that you could just sideswipe annoying people with.
Yeah, or one of those ones with a thagomizer on the end.
Oh, like a big spiky ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, did Stegosauruses have those?
Yeah, thagomizer. It's a word.
Okay. Anyway, we seem to have gone off piste a little bit. But yes, imposter syndrome must serve...
It was a bit of a swerve, wasn't it?
I mean, it was kind of relevant.
Okay.
It started off relevant anyway. But yeah, imposter syndrome, it must serve a useful function, because otherwise it just would not be... It wouldn't be a thing. And so that kind of just got me thinking. And that got me thinking about how to deal with it. Instead of fighting my feelings of self-doubt, because fighting yourself, you're always going to lose by definition, right?
Well, at least one of you is.
At least one of you is. And it's exhausting. Fighting yourself is exhausting. And I just feel like sometimes my entire life is just one big fight with myself. And so I was like, well, let's take an aspect of that and make it a little bit less fighty. I was like, imposter syndrome, instead of fighting these feelings of self-doubt that I have, I'm going to embrace them and use them as a tool to figure out what it's trying to tell me. Because that's the key, right? This imposter syndrome, this feeling is a message. It's it's going to, is it actually trying to keep me from doing something that's going to damage me? Not physically probably, but, social damage and kind of mental and emotional and psychic pain is as bad for you as physical pain. It has physical effects in your body. So is it trying to stop me from doing something catastrophic that's going to damage me in some way? Maybe look stupid or be shouted at or, sticking your head above the parapet type thing. Or is it telling me that actually I don't know enough about this particular subject, and I've got a whole host of unfinished barely started books on my hard drive that I've been like, I'm going to write about this. And they've all been abandoned for various reasons. At least some of those reasons have been because I simply don't know enough about that topic. It's something I'm interested in.
Something you've got an opinion on, but it's not something you can be...
Yeah. And so,
Okay.
part of the reason why I'm doing my master's degree at the moment is because I really want to write some more books about the craft of writing and about, why we write. Not so much about teaching people how to write, but like the purpose of it and how we can use it, and in a kind of social justice, and how, just because words are so damn important, right? And the way things are reported are important, and all of that. And I did not know enough about that side of things to write the books that I wanted to write. And so me doing this master's degree is a way of me getting that knowledge and also becoming a better writer at this. Don't use the word better. A more effective and compelling and interesting writer, more truthful writer. I'm going to go on a little side quest about the word better now as well. So quite often people will come to me and be like, I want to be a better writer. Can you teach me? And my first question is, what do you mean by better? Because it's a really vague word.
It's very nice, isn't it?
It's a very nice word. And so it's like, well, what does better mean? Because A, good writing above a certain level is subjective, very subjective. And B, do you want to become technically better? Do you want to know how to use the the rules of grammar better? Do you want better words, more interesting words?
More better words.
More better words. Do you want to be more persuasive? Do you want to be more moving? Because all of those things are different. They're different things. So I'm going to come back from my side quest now. What was I talking about? Saber-toothed bears.
What? We were talking about your imposter syndrome and what's it trying to stop you doing.
Yes. So the question I ask myself all the time is, what if my imposter syndrome is right? Maybe I don't know enough to write that book or publish that course. Maybe I am, if not an outright fraud, I hope, because that implies deliberateness. Maybe I'm being a little bit overconfident and a little bit over enthusiastic about this thing that I am kind of thinking about. But I'm very excited about this idea. Trying to ski jump before I can crawl. It's not deliberately trying to mislead people, but maybe I just need to learn a little bit more before I hit publish on this thing. And so that gives me a roadmap for, okay, so what exactly is it that I don't know enough about? And then I can go and find out about it. I can go and find the studies. Because I looked at quite a lot of studies to write this article and to do this podcast. And they're really, really interesting. And so, what do you need to go and study? What do you need to find out a bit more about? Is there a skill you need to learn? Do you need to interview people? Do you need to talk to people? Maybe your imposter syndrome is right. Maybe it is giving you a pointer to what you need to find out more about before you publish the thing that you want to publish, which is also a way of protecting you. Because, if you put something out that you don't know enough about, you are going to look like a fool, and you will be called out on it, and rightly so. Like, if I put something out that's complete bollocks, then I would hope that people would call me out on it, because, it will be painful and I'll hate it, but I also want to be able to fix that.
You want the truth to be out there rather than just nonsense.
Yeah. And, again, I think the truth is subjective, because my truth is different from your truth, but there are facts out there that need to be, that need to be correct. Facts are facts. So yeah, on the other hand, though, if you do know enough, and I think this is the case for a lot of people, and this is where we're really getting to the crux of it, is it's simply your brain trying to protect you from doing something that you might be a bit uncomfortable about, because publishing anything, is really scary.
It's just exposure, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just exposure. It's like when you're climbing, you can be up a mountain, you can be somewhere perfectly safe, you can be stood on something warm, wide, comfortable and fine, but it's exposed.
Yes.
And your brain goes, no, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And, if this path was at ground level, you'd be like, this is no problem at all. But it's not at ground level. It's 300 feet up.
Yeah.
And your brain just goes, exposure, don't like.
I have the same thing on trapezes. Like, I can do a thing on a trapeze that's 5 feet off the ground, but put it 10 feet off the ground and I'll be like, nope. It's ridiculous. It's no different. And we're back in the room. That was, you've just missed a minute of me going, fuck, because I couldn't remember what I was going to say. But one of the things that I now do before I put something out, because even when I publish something on social media, like, I get really nervous, especially if it's something I care about a lot, because I'm like, are people going to jump on this? Am I going to upset people? Am I going to cause harm? I'm not so bothered about people being offended, because that's kind of a choice, but I definitely don't want to do something that will cause harm, right?
Sure.
And so I have started asking myself, I've started devil's advocating with myself and being like, can I defend? If I'm putting an opinion out there, can I defend it? Like if someone comes at me and says, just attacks what I've said for whatever reason. And like, if they come at me ad hominem, I'm not interested. Like, I'm just going to ignore that bullshit. But if they come at me and are like, well, actually, blah, blah, blah.
You are wrong because.
You're wrong because this. Can I defend my point of view? And so I will run that opinion or that piece that I've put out, I will run that through my internal filters and be like, if somebody comes at me about this, can I argue my point? And can I argue it coherently? And, sometimes I will change my mind with stuff. And I do all the time. And I have before. It's like, oh, I had that opinion, but actually I'm thinking about this, never considered it from this point of view. Because you can't always consider it from every point of view in your head because it's your head. You can do your best. But, can I defend my point of view as with the knowledge that I've got now? Do I know enough to give a good and robust? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think that's quite a good, I think if more people did that on social media would be a better, a more pleasant place. But it's so fast, isn't it? It's like,
just throw stuff out there.
Just throw stuff out there and knee-jerk reaction. So if it, maybe your imposter syndrome is right, but if it isn't, if you really do know your stuff and your brain is kicking in and you're doubting yourself, then don't run away from it. Don't fight it. Acknowledge it and be like, okay, I'm feeling like this. Why am I feeling like this? Because it's scary to publish stuff. It's scary to put your opinions out there and invite criticism.
I know people might disagree with me.
Yeah. And then, remind yourself, it's not for me. There is a post-it note on my screen that says it's not for me. And every time I feel nervous about putting something out there, I remind myself of that. Like everything I write has got the purpose to help people write, to help people write their stories, to help people put books out there. That's literally why I run my business. I also run it, to make me the money because that's what I do for a living. But like, aside from that, my purpose is I want amazing books to be out there by people who should have their voices heard. And so as soon as you take that focus off, I'm doing this for me, it becomes service for others, and it becomes, you can take your ego out of it a little bit, because that's what it is really, is the self-preservation thing is one thing, but also it's ego. It's like, I want people to like me. Of course I want people to like me. Like most people, I know there are people who don't give a shit, and people who have autism and stuff like that often don't really care whether people like them or not. But for most of us, we do. We really care what people think of us, and so it's perfectly reasonable. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Do you care what people think of you?
I care what some people think of me. I don't care what many people think of me.
I care far too much what strangers on the internet think of me.
I couldn't give monkeys what strangers on the internet think.
That's amazing. I wish I was like that. Sorry, the cats are being weird.
Suspicious cats. We're going to need to wrap this up.
Yeah. So, Joe.
Hello.
What is the... so, yes, okay, I've just got a little wrap-up to do. All published writing is a test, right? Will they like it? Will the people who are reading the thing that I've put out, will they like it? Will my writing help someone? Will it stand up to scrutiny by my peers? And will my readers find it valuable? Those are the questions that I ask myself. And those are the important ones. And other people's opinions, if they're not your target audience, they don't matter so much, So, Joe, what is the takeaway?
Takeaway is ask your imposter syndrome some questions. Is it correct? Do I need to learn more? Or can I just crack on? Yeah. Use it as a tool, basically. Yeah. But don't just run from it. Acknowledge it and see it and listen to it and decide whether it's valid. Yeah. And above all, do not let it stop you from doing the thing that you want to do that matters to you. Because even if you don't know enough, then that is your cue to go and learn enough so that you can make the thing that you want to make and put it out there. And if you do know enough, then do not let your imposter syndrome stop you from publishing your book or writing your piece or making your art or whatever it is that you want to do. Sticking your head above the parapet. Yes. It's too important. What you're doing is too important for that. So thank you for listening. Coming up next week, we're going to be talking about, is grammar elitist? Oh. Ooh. And I'm going to get letters. Good. Yeah. Because I do have opinions on this. And whilst I will absolutely listen to other people's opinions, I'm pretty sure I'm right. So anyway, I am currently
There is a free writing prompt calendar at moxiebooks.co.uk/calendar. There's a writing prompt every day. If you're following me on Instagram at Tiny Beetle Steps, I will post the writing prompt every day on my stories. You can get the PDF calendar, though, that is clickable through to the prompts from moxiebooks.co.uk/calendar. And all you need to do is give me your email address for that. If you have listened to every episode, you can email me with your postal address and I will send you a special gift. And if you like this podcast, what do they do, Joe?
They recommend it to their friends. They write reviews. 5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
If you don't like our podcast, other podcasts are available. And subscribe. Go to iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from and subscribe. Because that helps us to climb the rankings. And I think that's it. I don't think I got anything else. I think I've got anything to promote this time. You could buy my book.
Yeah.
moxiebooks.co.uk/buy my book. If you go to Audible and search for That's What She Said, you can grab my Audible book, which was shouted out by said Instagram influencer, which made my day, in the same company as Michelle Obama. So, go buy that book. And we will be back same time next week. Podfly, thank you so much for all of the hard work that you put into producing this podcast. Harriet, thank you for all of the hard work that you do organising me. And Joe, thank you for being my wonderful co-host.
Thank you very much.
And making wonderful dinners, because otherwise I would just eat beans.
Beans.
And thank you, dear listener, for listening to this podcast, because otherwise we would just be screaming into the void.
That's enough of that.
Yes, stay weird, and we'll be back next week. Bye!
Bye!
Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.